Hey there YouTube, welcome to Big Mike Beard Wisdom. So today we're going to talk a little bit about buying and selling cars. So I bought this, it's a 2008 Saturn Astra, and basically the reason why I bought it was because the Escalade back there, it's all-wheel drive and gets about 15 miles per gallon and takes premium only fuel. So you can run lower grades in it, it's just that the engine computers have to retard the timing so much that it can really makes it kind of wonky, but it basically recommends premium. So this doesn't recommend premium, but it's one of those things where depending on the car you may be better off running premium. So this is a Saturn Astra, and in other countries it's either an Opel Astra or a Vauxhall Astra, and basically it's really similar to a Cobalt, and I believe it's even on the same like GM global platform, but it's not exactly the same. So with the Cobalts, you can get the Cobalts in a coupe or a sedan. These you can get them in a 3-door or 5-door hatch, and a lot of the components are similar but different. So the control arms are different in these. They don't have the same issue that like the Cobalts have with the lower grade Cobalts, where basically the steel control arms bushings wound up falling out. But besides this normal stuff that you look for, that's like vehicle specific, let's take a look at what you kind of need to look at if you're buying or selling a car, just so that you know what's going to wind up going on. So first, let's go over some body stuff. So when you look at the body, you're looking for anything that doesn't look right. So these kind of strips on this one, this looks like it's broken out, but it looks like the original cover would have just flipped down and in, and more than likely this was something for a roof rack. So this stands out in my mind pretty good, but this really isn't that big of a deal because this isn't really a sealed component. It doesn't seal to the roof, so that's not a super big deal. Whereas if you had something like, if you had a bunch of seals torn or something like that, or the door misaligned, that would be something that would kind of, you know, not be good and cause any kind of like a water intrusion. So, but when you take a look at the body, you're looking at a bunch of different things, and it's easy to see sometimes if you've got a dent, especially if it broke the paint. So if it broke the paint, dents will stand out, but otherwise some dents you won't really see. And the best trick that we used to use is that you would get about right here on the body, find yourself, you know, some decent points of reference, and then bend down as you look at your points of reference to see what shifts. So like as you look at the doors, I think right about here there's a couple dents, and as you bend down it'll distort slightly on the door dings. So right in here there's a door ding, and you can see it as you move up and down for where the garage door reflection is. Right there is a ding. So if you see people, you know, squatting and standing, that's what they're looking for. And it works for small, hard to see dings, because like if I were to walk up to this, it's pretty tough to see that. So you can see a little bit of a scratch here, and then there's another scratch here, but it works for big giant dents too. So this pretty good sized dent here can be relatively hidden depending on how you take the picture. So it's one of those things where you just want to be careful of, so like up here you'd almost never notice that there was that big dent, but if you watch the rock line as you come down, you can really see how big that dent is. And then the next things we check would be kind of like the badges and panel gaps. So if there was a big gap in anywhere, any of the seams, it would make you think that maybe the vehicle was in a wreck of some type. Also, badges can be kind of expensive, so you want to make sure that the badges are complete if they're important to you. If you're thinking about just getting rid of the badges, then maybe not so much of a big deal. So the ones that it really matters on are the doors, because that can make weird wind noises. You want to make sure the mirrors are good and solid, so just give them a little wiggle. And then you're also looking for rust. So certain vehicles are known to rust in certain places, but there's also common places for rust. Hood spots are kind of a common place for rust on vehicles, just because you get hit with all these rocks and it can punch through the clear coat and through the primer and then cause rust spots. So, but again, you check your panel gaps, make sure everything looks about right. Check your windows, see if it's cracked. So like this has a cracked windshield. There's also a bullseye one over here, another one over here. You want to see if the side windows look like they're cracked at all. So normally these are fine. Another thing to check would be your mirrors. So this one kind of sucks because this is a instance of somebody doing their own repair. So you can see here's a black frame. The black frame is the original frame, and then here's the mirror. And you can see it doesn't fit the frame. So somebody at some point in time must have damaged the mirror and they replaced it themselves, probably with a glue-on mirror. Now this one, it sucks because this, notice it doesn't say, you know, objects in mirror are closer than they appear, or, you know, even objects in mirror are losing. Anything that lets you know that it's the kind of mirror that shows you more around you. So basically this is a standard mirror. It being a standard mirror means that if someone's right behind you, instead of being able to see the whole person, you're probably just seeing the belly. Or they may even, you may even only see just the phone. So it's kind of one of those things where backing up, you don't see as much as you wanted to. When you go to pass somebody, you're not able to see as much around you. So that's something to always check. Door handles are big, because door handles, especially on newer vehicles, can break easy. So a lot of them are plastic. It's one of the things to check. I always try and check the gas cap. So for me, I'm looking for whether or not it's a locking gas cap or not, because I've never had good luck with locking gas caps. And a lot of them, people think that they're locked so that, you know, no one can get in it. They're really easy to defeat. So take it from a tech that's had plenty of people go, I lost my key, what do I do? Well, I'll get you in about 10 seconds. So, but anyways, so you check your panel gaps, check your lights, check your, well, about everything you can check on the outside. And then I always check the tires and the tire pressure. So there's a lot for tires. I could probably do a whole video on tires. So the big thing that I would look for is the size of the tire. So 225, 45, 17, and comparing that to what tire is meant to be on the car. So with this particular car, they had a couple different tire packages. And on most cars, either on the door frame, on the body, or on the door itself, you'll have like a tire placard. So this is P225 45 17 with speed rating of H, cold tire pressure 35 psi. So this is the correct size. It's just a higher speed rating tire because it's a 94V. And then the rear tires have quite a lot of tread, but if you look at the tires, they're pretty dry rotted or heat damaged, and they're even damaged inside here, like inside the tread. So that kind of happens from having the tire not filled up properly and it's superheating, having too much weight in the car, or driving too fast. So there's a whole bunch of different things. These are kind of young tires. These tires were made the 31st week of 2017. So 4-year-old tires, they're showing that kind of cracking. I would say they're probably driven a little bit too fast. And then between the front tires and the rear tires, the front tires are drastically heavier wore. So most tires have wear bars, that right there is a wear bar. The wear bar is 2/32 normally. And if you hit the wear bars, it's pretty good and wore out. So, but it's like they never rotated these tires. Because normally on a front wheel drive car, the engine's much heavier, so you'll wear the front tires faster. It's a little bit different if you've got like a rear wheel drive vehicle or like a truck. Because on like a heavy duty truck, sometimes the rear tires will wear faster. But a lot of times the heavy duty truck's engine is so much heavier, even though the rear tires are the drive tires, the rear tires are the tires that'll spin at times and wear fast. The weight of the engine causes the front tires to wear faster on like a really heavy duty truck. Whereas, you know, maybe like a Camaro or a Mustang, those rear tires are going to wear out faster than anything else. So we've gone over a bunch of stuff on the outside. You want to make sure the lights work. So if you got a buddy, have them hit the lights, because inevitably nobody wants to get a ticket test driving somebody else's car. And then when it comes to the interior, so one of the places that I used to work, we did used cars. And the biggest thing with used cars is both aftermarket parts. So like if it had an aftermarket radio or something, or any kind of weird modification, but those will stand out as to whether or not those could be a point of something not working quite right. But also, you basically just go in and touch everything. So you go in, maybe check the sun visors, make sure the lights work, make sure the windows, the glass isn't cracked, make sure it pops out, slides open, it moves fine, stays up, make sure the lights work. So you basically just touch as much stuff as you can, and then make mental notes of what doesn't work, or write it down. So for this vehicle, I found that the cruise control didn't work, but after I bought it, it wound up being just the contacts were bad in the switch. So I was able to clean it out, and because originally this barely moved. This is the on-off part. So when you went to turn it on, it wouldn't do anything. So that part kind of sucked, but I was able to clean it and fix that. It had a check engine light on, and the tire pressure light's flashing. If it's flashing, it means that you've got either a problem with the TPMS sensor. So if a sensor's bad or not reading, or the battery's dead in the sensor, or there's a problem with the system itself. So the module's bad. So maybe the module can't like pick up the antenna or something like that. But you want to touch everything, make sure everything kind of works. And if you're pressed for time, instead of maybe touching everything, touch as much stuff as you can touch in the driver's seat and in the front passenger seat, because those are the two areas that are going to be covered the most. So someone's going to be sitting in those spots the most on most vehicles, and it'll help you figure out if something's, you know, not quite right or something's broke. So, and then I always do some simple checks for the stereo. So with a stereo, the biggest thing is to try and find like a good station. And then let me turn the volume down on this really fast. Okay, so I turned the volume down before anything weird could happen. So before any music could play that might get me in trouble. And the big thing with the stereo system for me, especially on a used car, is having a blown speaker. So depending on how everything's set up, you want to take your faders. Oops. Turn that back down. You want to take the fader, dial it all the way forward, and then play with your balance. So now you're checking the individual speakers, and you're trying to isolate speakers that don't work right. So if you've got a preferred CD or like a preferred radio station, one that hopefully plays both like treble and a bass pretty good, and then you want to check it like that. And then like whether or not you've got the bass or treble settings, just make sure one's not crazy offset than the other one, because that might be a sign that something's not quite right. So, and then after you've done the front, cycle it all the way to the back. So, and then do the exact same thing. And then of course you'd have sound playing, but like right now, you know, I can't play the music because I don't want to get a copyright ding. So basically you just shift it, and then once you've hit all 4 corners, then you've probably hit that pretty good. And then you've got the volume hopefully loud enough that you're able to get, you know, decent sound through it. So it's not that you're overdriving the speakers, it's that just that you want to be able to hear everything. So once you've got that checked, the AC is the next big one, because most stereo systems, like the old ones, are easy to replace. The newer ones that have integrated functionality get a little bit weird. So stereo wise, that can be expensive on newer stuff to replace, because you may have to go factory or you may be able to bypass it. But HVAC wise, there's normally not an aftermarket controller for your HVAC. So this particular car is nice because the HVAC unit is separate from the stereo system. Some new cars integrate both of it, and then that becomes a big pain in the butt. So, but you want to check and make sure that when you change the modes, so that when you go from like your foot and the vent to the vent to the defroster to the defroster and feet to just feet, that there aren't any weird noises. And then go back. So there was a little squeak there, which might be, you know, indicative that something is getting dried out or sort of loose or something like that. You also want to go from, say, cold to hot and make sure there's a change, and then a hot to cold again. And then depending on what time of year it is, you want to make sure the AC works. So today's a pretty good day because it's 85 degrees and I can feel the AC is blowing cold. You also want to make sure that the fan speeds are all present, because if you have a blown resistor, you might not have a fan speed on a certain speed. So fan speed works on 1, 2, 3, and 4 is max. If you had a situation where it only worked on 4, then the resistor's probably blown for all the lower speeds. So that's the quick check for that, and that kind of helps make sure that, you know, you're getting a vehicle that's going to be relatively decent. So if you can't look underneath the car, so if you can't jack it up and stuff, that's fine to set like a appointment with somebody to get it checked out later, because I mean, you can do just as much damage jacking up a vehicle incorrectly as there might already be done to the vehicle. So the test drive is an important one, because you want to make sure that when you test drive it, you're listening for any kind of bumps or weird noises. So that's where you'll be able to figure out if a lot of components are bad that you can't tell just from visually inspecting. Now, the next big thing is going to be the engine. So engine-wise, you want to take a good peek under the hood. And the idea is to look for anything aftermarket. So aftermarket stuff can cause problems, but aftermarket stuff can also give you an indicator of how it was treated. So certain vehicles are performance vehicles, and those vehicles may have performance parts that make sense to have. Now, if it's like a commuter vehicle and it's got performance parts, then you can almost guarantee that somebody beat on it. But the other stuff you're looking for is any kind of weird oil leaks, any rust. You want to look in the front. You're looking for any kind of weird folds in the metal that isn't identical on the other side. That would indicate maybe it was in a wreck. So, and then also if you can check leaks, if you can get under the vehicle, that's really good. If you take it to a shop and look underneath it and have them check your tires, that's even better. And then that'll be a pretty good checkout for your car. And if you're buying a car, if you find problems, that's the kind of stuff that you can use to negotiate the price lower. If you're selling a car, then at least now you know that those are problems, and it's not going to be a surprise whenever you get negotiated about it.
So the last thing we'll talk about is presenting it. So when you put your ad up, and you can see everything's much cleaner on the car. It looks like it's in good shape. The pictures are taken so you can't really see any of the dents. And they give you a fair amount of info, but they didn't get into some of the issues that we found. So I brought a code reader just because I wanted to check and make sure that there was no issues with it. And then lo and behold, of course, it has a check engine light, so now I've got to try and figure out what's wrong with it. But it's one of those things where when you price the car and it looks good, like it does here, someone might be willing to pay your price and be like, okay, yeah, it looks good, that's every bit what it's worth. But as soon as they come in and they start finding issues, they're going to immediately try and knock that price down. So whether you're buying or selling, you got to kind of take the pictures with a grain of salt. And it's one of those things where the more upfront a seller is, you're going to risk, if you've got a problematic vehicle, scaring people away, but you may also be able to keep the amount of money that you originally were expecting to sell it for. Whereas if you didn't have it in the ad, and someone rolls in, and then now you've got this, and this. That's not right. There's no way I'm paying this price. So it all depends on what kind of situation you want, and it's always good to be really prepared. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll check you next time.